Hello everyone, welcome back to Maya in Minutes, where we go over helpful tips, tricks, and tools that you can do in Maya. And today we are going to be going over the first of many different primitives that you can work with in Maya. Now, what are primitives? Well, essentially, primitives are just the most basic forms of geometry that you can create in Maya. This is a very common tool that you see in a lot of different 3D softwares. They'll all have some option to just create a very, very basic type of geometry, and Maya is no different. I'll go over a couple different ways that you can create primitives, and then we'll go over different options that we have on one of the primitives in this video, and we'll explore a lot of the options that other primitives have in subsequent videos. So to start off, how do we create a primitive? Well, the first thing that you can do is you can go up to this panel here, go up to this tab that says Poly Modeling. By default, I have this Poly Modeling tab open. And you can go over and you can see in this first option, or in the first top left, you have a couple different primitives that you can create here. The second option that you can do is you can go over to the Create tab, click on it, go down to Polygon Primitives, and you can see along with those primitives that we had in our poly modeling tab, you also have a couple more options that you can work with the slightly more complex primitives. So if you are working with a little bit more of a complex shape, you might want to check those out instead of just working with a base primitive here. The last option you can do is you can hold Shift, right click, and it'll bring up a little hot menu here where you can choose and create any of the primitives that Maya has available just with this little pick whip tool. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'm going to start off by creating a sphere. Go ahead and create a sphere. We have a sphere. Pretty basic, pretty self-explanatory here. However, I'm going to go ahead and delete this here, and I'm going to go see if we can explore a little bit more of the options we have when creating a sphere. So I'm going to go up to my poly modeling tab. I'm going to double click on my sphere icon, and you'll see that you have this little option menu that pops up. That's it. This is a quick tip that you can work with any of these buttons up here in your shelf editor. Any of these options, if you double click them, you should be able to get a option menu here that gives you further and more advanced control of the options you can do when you're working with those operations. If you double click on it and it doesn't pop up any menu, that means there's no options that you can change with. Let's go back to our poly modeling tab. So we'll go over all of these different values here and see what they do. This first value that we have is our radius value. Your radius value just determines how large the base object is going to be. So if I go ahead and set this to something like 6, hit apply, it's going to be a fairly large sphere with a radius of 6. And that means that it's going to have 6 units. It's going to have 6 units from the origin here. So we go to our orthographic view and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units from this origin as its total radius. If I was to set this down to 1, and then let's delete this sphere and hit apply, you can see that that radius is now only 1 unit. The second option that you can work with is the axis divisions, and the axis divisions changes the amount of edge loops and divisions we have along the vertical length of the sphere. So if I go ahead and set this to, let's say 10, hit apply, you can see on this sphere we have only 10 vertical lines going down the sphere instead of the 20 that we had before. Let's go ahead and set that back to 20. And then delete this, apply. And then the last option we have is height, which does the horizontal divisions that we have on the sphere. If I set this to, let's say 30 or so, let's get rid of this sphere and then hit apply. You can see that there are more divisions along the horizontal axis here. The axis option changes where we have the top of the sphere pointing. By default, you should have it set to the y-axis, but if I was to delete this and set it to x, hit apply. You can see that it's now aligned along the x-axis instead. Same thing, if I hit the z-axis and hit apply, it's going to be aligned along the z-axis. The last option that we have here is the UV option. This just changes how the UVs of the sphere will be created. So if we use sawtooth at poles, that just means that they aren't going to be connected together at the UV. If we do pinched at the poles, they're going to be all connected and pinched together at the pole. So if I go ahead and create this, and this is an option that we'll probably have to bring up another menu to see what's really happening. So to do that, I'm going to go over to Windows. I'm going to go over to Modeling Editors, and I'm going to go to UV Editor. It should bring up your UV Editor tab. So now let's go ahead and create a sawtooth at the poles sphere real quick. Hit apply. You can see here that the sawtooth motion here just has them all kind of separated out on the UVs. Delete that. If I create on pinched at the poles and hit apply, you can see that they're all unified here at the top. Most of the time, you're probably going to want them to have sawtooth at the poles, but if you want them all, if you don't want to have a bunch of seams along the edge there, you can use the pinch at the poles option as well. Now, all these options are available and manipulatable in your attribute editor and in your input tab. So we go ahead and close this window and go to my input tab. You can see all of those different values that we had at the first are in our options menu are here. And just like anything we can do in the input tab, they are animatable and keyable. So I can change the radius here dynamically in real time. Zoom out a little bit to show you a little bit more. I can change how many subdivisions are along the height of the object or the vertical length of the object and along the horizontal length of the object as well. You can also change these options in the attribute editor. We go ahead and switch to the attribute editor real quick and go to our polysphere option. You can see all of those options that we had are here as well. But there's also one other option that you can manipulate, and this is the height baseline option. This just determines on where in real or where in 3D space our object's origin point is going to be. When it's at 0, by default, it's just going to have its middle value here at 0. If we set it to 1, it's going to be below this plane here. If I set it at -1, it's going to be above this plane here. This just determines on where that origin point is in relation to the object. Most of the time, you're probably just going to want to have it set at 0. All right, so those are just the basic options that we have in the creation of a polygonal primitive sphere. In the next video, we'll be going over the options you can do on a cube. All right, thank you, and I'll see you guys in the next video.